Hi guys, and welcome to an OBSEC battle report. My name's Mike, and today we're going to be viewing a 2015 battle report between Ravenwing and Tau. Now this game took place in November of 2015 as the first game of the Western Australian Masters 40k event. It's 2,000 points playing Dawn of War, and we've got Big Guns Never Tire alongside Cleanse and Control the Maelstrom. Now as you can see here, the guys are just setting up the table. The Tau did deploy first and will be going first. We've got a fairly interesting set of lists today as well. The Tau are featuring the new Tau Codex, which was just released prior to the event, so we are getting access to the new cool bits and pieces and upgrades they received, while the Ravenwing are obviously utilising the detachment to get the maximum benefits and out of their special rules and the Dark Shrouds. So the guys are just deploying here and doing all the preliminary stuff, so let's have a quick talk about the deployment. I know the camera angle isn't ideal for this sort of thing, but because I was running the event on the day, I couldn't move the camera around too much. So, as you can see, the Tau have deployed with their firepower spread out fairly evenly along the table, with the trio of Riptides closest to the camera, and then the far end, I don't know if you can see it in the shot, there's a red Riptide at the far end that is part of the CAD. Now, what's interesting about this is the Ravenwing, despite having all their rerolls on their Jinx and a couple of Dark Shrouds in the list, have chosen to deploy quite laterally as well. And if it was me, I'd probably be considering picking a flank and playing a refuse flank against the Tau force. Probably the end with the broadsides, because I think they'll probably be the most dangerous thing. The Ravenwing have obviously got to look out for the Pathfinders in particular with their marker lights, which will strip those cover saves from them and then make them easy prey for the Riptides. So here the Tau have started moving, and look, Mike, who's playing the Tau, has been very generous with his opponent and allowed him to make a scout move, which had been completely forgotten at the start of the game. So the Ravenwing are just doing a quick reshuffle now, and then Mike's going to pick it back up now and continue his movement. Now, that in itself is probably quite an important note in that the players are very forthcoming with information throughout the game. Obviously I've had to mute the audio because they are sped up so that we can watch a 2-hour game in about 20 minutes, and you don't want to hear them beat chipmunks. So as you can see, the Tau have started their movement and shooting phases. I think we're still in the movement. Yes, we are. And so that red Riptide at the far end, you can now probably see poke its head around the corner there. Now he's facing off against a unit of Black Knights that are hidden behind that far building, along with a Dark Shroud Landspeeder. And the building closest to us on the left of the screen, there's the standard Ravenwing squad with its attack bike attached, just tucked behind that with another Dark Shroud and the Vengeance. So the shooting phase gets underway, and you can obviously see the guys checking line of sight. It's quite a heavy terrain board, this one. It's about a third of the table that gets covered with scatter terrain, and then obviously some of those quite large buildings that dot the table. And it's important that obviously both players are okay with their line of sight options and what they can and can't see. So here come the first of the templates from the Riptides. The ion accelerator firing down there into the Black Knights, and with the help of some marker lights, killing a model or two. I will point out it's quite an interesting contest at this point. Oh god, there I am lurking into the picture in my bright orange TO's t-shirt. It is a quite an interesting conversation. Quite an interesting game, because the Tau rely on their ability to strip cover saves and kill things before they get to them, while the Ravenwing do the job up close and rely on their cover saves to live. And really the key to this game is going to be the Pathfinders. If the Pathfinders can stay alive long enough for those Riptides and Broadsides to strip, enough of the cover saves with marker light hits off the Black Knights in particular, who are rocking a 3+ or even a 2+, depending on where the Dark Shroud is, re-rollable Jinx save. If you can strip those down to just their 3-up armor and then fire a few of those Riptides ion accelerators, the game could be over before it starts. And really that's what it comes down to, is how aggressive the Ravenwing are going to be. If the Ravenwing are going to be quite aggressive, then we could see a flank rolled relatively quickly and easily because the Tau just can't match the Black Knights in combat. The other interesting factor about this game is going to be that Imperial Knight, that Crusader, puts out an awful lot of firepower. It is relatively well armoured in comparison to what the Tau firepower is. The Tau, there's a handful, I think it's 4 fusion blasters in the bodyguard team with Farsight alongside the Riptides, and that's it. They've got no real way of dealing with that armor 13 6 hull point 4 plus cover 4 plus invul save. Oh, there's the first blood for the Tau, killing off the Vengeance. Oh no, sorry, it was a Dark Shroud. So yeah, the Knight is going to pose a real issue for the Tau. The best bet at that particular point is, first of all, doing exactly what Mike's chosen to do here and focusing on the immediate close range threats that will roll his lines in the form of the Ravenwing bike units and ideally the Dark Shrouds as well. And then worrying about the Knight when it becomes an issue. He's got a lot of cover. The cover saves are there. The Riptides are relatively safe from the battle cannon and the Gatling gun since they're only AP3, and as are the broadsides for that matter. So he's not too stressed about the Knight. If the Knight is played aggressively and throws itself into the fray, then it could be an issue because those Strength 10 AP2 attacks alongside Stomp will be a factor. But Mike's probably got enough time because that Knight's been deployed quite defensively to keep them at bay and obviously punish them as they try and come in. So we're into the assault phase now. You can see the Riptides shuffling with their boost moves. Now that red Riptide at the far end, I'm speaking to Mike after the event, I wasn't really sure why he'd chosen to boost it forwards there, particularly putting it in such a dangerous spot with those Black Knights. He's obviously hoping that the multiple wounds, high toughness and combination of armour and invul saves there will keep it locked down with those Black Knights. Now those Black Knights all pack plasma as well, which is probably a bad place for that Riptide to be. Here's the second unit of Black Knights sweeping down towards those Fire Warriors, and then there's the Ravenwing squad coming out, and the Vengeance land speeder there as well. Command squad advances. We're looking at almost certainly a turn 2 charge. Oh, the Knight took a bit of a fall there, but he's obviously advancing now as well. In reality, where he is now is probably where he should have been deployed. There's no harm in having that Knight quite aggressive in this particular matchup because the Tau don't really want it close. So between move through cover and the Gargantuan creature rules, it would have been very easy for it to be looking for a turn 2 charge, whereas now it's obviously going to be turn 3, unless the Tau. Oh, we still might see a turn 2 if you go aggressive enough. So obviously we've now got the Plasma Talons on those Black Knights and the Command Squad firing into that Riptide at the far end. Samael's with the Command Squad as well with his Plasma Cannon. So that building though has very limited line of sight through the bottom floor just due to the way it's been constructed. So the Riptide's reasonably safe in that regard. This is the Knight now lighting up the trio of Riptides. This was a really interesting unit to see. It was the first time, obviously, we'd seen a unit of Riptides. Mike had been quite clever with this unit, made it as durable as he could. They've all got stim injectors, as you saw earlier in the piece, and there's a couple of target locks in there as well, so they can still divide their fire as if they were 3 units. So they do soak an inordinate amount of firepower. They've got mobility, and they can shuffle the wounds around depending on who's the closest. So it's quite an interesting build. I think it probably doesn't need the stim injectors, and given velocity trackers or some of the Skyfire options maybe would have been a more interesting choice for him in later rounds, but it did the job in this particular game. Now we just missed there, the Black Knights killed off most of those Fire Warriors closest to the bottom of the screen. It was obviously a question mark there whether you try and shoot them down or whether you want to try and charge them. I'd say Matt's still hoping for a charge there, but it's obviously a considerably longer distance now. Thankfully the bikes have skilled riders, so that obstacle in the way isn't going to be a big deal. So the Fire Warriors hold. And obviously now we're going to see those Black Knights charge that Riptide up the far end there. Now, having been on the receiving end of a Black Knight charge, those 4 attacks at strength 5 with rending can be quite brutal. And it's obviously the rending that Matt's hoping for here to try and kill that Riptide quickly. The Riptide's not a huge threat in terms of its attacks back. It's only got a couple of attacks. Yes, it's a monstrous creature, and it'll be wounding on 3s, and with AP 2, it'll make sure that those Knights go down, particularly since they're not getting their massive Jink reroll saves. But at the same time, it's also an interesting way of tying up that Riptide for a turn of shooting, even if he doesn't kill it, and then at the end of Mike's assault phase, using hit and run and bouncing out of combat and leaving it stranded and putting it in a position where it's in danger. So we're into Tau turn 2 now, and you can see the Crisis team with Farsight landing. A nice little deep strike directly behind the Knight. Now they do have 4 fusion guns, and you have to assume that the Knight shields in the shooting phase are going to be facing the rear, which obviously leaves its front armour vulnerable to those ion accelerators if he chooses to use the overheat option and the Nova reactor. The last of the 2 Fire Warriors moving forward. They are on an objective there. I don't know if you can see it as well as possible, but the main reason they're there is obviously just to try and score Maelstrom cards. The missions for this event only allow you to score 2 cards per turn, so it's really important that you have the maximum flexibility in scoring those cards. You don't want to be in a position where you've got 3 cards in your hand and you had the opportunity to take objectives to score them, and then all of a sudden you find yourself without them. So yeah, they're not in a great spot, and they're almost certainly going to die to the hands of the Ravenwing in the Ravenwing turn 2, but they are fulfilling a role at the moment in scoring Mike some points. So we've now got the broadsides lighting things up, and the Pathfinder support as well. I can't stress how important these Pathfinders are to this game. They really needed to be target number 1, particularly for the Knight, who can just pile on the wounds regardless of any cover saves they might have. It would have been great to see those 2 teams of Pathfinders just kill turn 1, which drastically reduces the Tower's ability to deal with the Ravenwing with anything other than smart missiles. And even smart missiles, you're still getting your 3+ armor save. These high-yield missile pods take a massive toll, and obviously you've just seen there, combined with some Markalites, removes another land speeder from the table. That's the second Dark Shroud down, and that's really important for hampering the abilities of the Ravenwing. Mike just explaining the target locks there to make sure that his opponent understands where the different weapon systems are going. And here comes the overcharged ion accelerators with their Nova reactors. Mike placing them so he can actually clip that land speeder at the same time, and obviously looking to take out two targets at once, which is quite an interesting miscalculation there on behalf of Matt with his Dark Angels. It's also a good way of getting around Jink, because obviously if you're not the target of the attack, then you can't Jink. So it's something that really does affect the Ravenwing deployment. You have to be very careful with those Dark Shrouds. In particular, it's a great way of scattering blasts onto them and making them take hits that they wouldn't otherwise take, and therefore deny them the opportunity to Jink. There's the Knight going critical, thanks to the combined fire of those ion weapons and the fusion guns. Mike had a good run with those fusion blasters, and unfortunately for Matt with his cover, or rather his ion shield saves didn't work so well. They are using a 15-inch template. Obviously we're only going to be measuring the 10 inches. And obviously the Knights stumbled a little bit straight where Mike really would have loved them to, which is smack into the middle of that Ravenwing squad. Not so many kills but the knight going down is a huge blow to the fire support of the tower. Sorry, of the Ravenwing. As you can see, this tower firepower is just utterly devastating, and it's really kept the Ravenwing at arm's length. That Farsight bomb that's landed is loaded with all the goodies, the Pure Engram ship, and all the other signature systems that make Tau so effective in ignoring saves and providing tank hunters and all those other funky rules, which is obviously another contributing factor to that knight going down so quickly and easily. And at this point in time, it's almost a case of a mop-up session for the Tau. I mean, the Ravenwing are obviously going to have to do their best to try and level the score, but ultimately at this point, it's almost a case of playing so that you don't get tabled and you don't lose that maximum 20-0 in terms of your tournament points. The Tau's marker light support and those broadsides in particular have just been utterly removing units through just volumes and volumes of firepower. It's been quite impressive to watch. So here we've obviously got the Ravenwing trying to salvage something from the disaster that has befallen them over the last turn or two, and put some fire back into those broadsides and into the Pathfinders, and obviously seeing very little return on it, unfortunately. We're also obviously going to have some plasma fire from those Ravenwing at the bottom there, closest to those two remaining fire warriors. There they go. And Samael with his plasma talons from his unit, along with his own plasma cannon into Farsight and co. We'll probably see a couple of them go through plasma, and then obviously a charge immediately following it to try and take them out of the game and salvage something. Mike was actually very canny in this positioning there, which means that I think we're probably going to lose one bodyguard before we lose any wounds on Farsight, and obviously we can look at Sir those as well. So I think it's fairly likely that you'll still have Farsight standing there at the end of those couple of plasma talons and plasma cannon, certainly enough to hopefully hold up those Ravenwing command for a little while. That being said, of course, they have those Corvus hammers, and Samael's no particular slouch. So who knows what result will come from that. A little bit of Overwatch fire there, but nothing meaningful. And now obviously we have Samael versus Farsight. Should be a foregone conclusion in favour of the Ravenwing, but given the location on the board and the firepower rate before them, it's almost a case of playing hide and seek and trying not to, like I said before, not completely tabled. Unfortunately, it almost ends up in a position where you want to make sure Farsight lives long enough so that you kill him in your opponent's turn, so that you've obviously got that extra mobility from the consolidate move, or even at least the opportunity for hit and run, to try and maximise your mobility and just get out of there and hunker down and hopefully survive another turn. Another couple of points scored there for the Ravenwing via Maelstrom, but it's a fairly bleak looking table at this point in time. Mike now obviously looking to pick a unit and deal with it completely. The easier of the two units to deal with is obviously going to be the standard Ravenwing squad with that Vengeance, rather than having to deal with those Black Knights who have that better saving throw and are probably more dangerous in combat. 3 Riptides versus those 4 bikes, it's probably in favour of the Riptides at that point, but you don't want to run the risk if you don't have to. And the fact that red Riptide has actually not only killed all those Black Knights but survived and still be in a position to shoot is pretty amazing. We'll probably see a fair amount of firepower come in from him downrange at that Ravenwing squad. Here comes the pie plate now. And we we take out the Vengeance. Another kill point for the tower. And then of course we've still got all those high yield missile pods and smart missile systems, and then obviously still the firepower from those those riptides. Using the target locks very efficiently there to make sure that we maximise the kills there. Those 3 Black Knights aren't necessarily a huge big deal anymore. Their closest enemy is 3 riptides, and that's a fight that they'll lose every time. Here come the missile pods. And there goes another bike. I think we're just left with the attack bike now. Now we're just left with the attack bike, probably on 1 wound from the looks of it. But I think we've still got to fire smart missile systems. Yep, here come the tower smart missiles. And there goes the bike. So what are we left with? At this point in time, the tower I've only got to deal with have literally a handful of Black Knights, and that jump move means that if those Black Knights want them, they have to come get them away from that objective, which is a very smart move from Mike. It means that they can't double team and score that objective, and then obviously still kill the tower or have a shot at killing the tower. Just resolving the final assault phase between Samael and Farsight. And we're dragging out another turn. The Ravenwing don't really have too many options at this point. Those Black Knights really do have to dive their way in and see what they can salvage. The only other option they have is to bail and try and conserve themselves. It is almost an exercise in futility though, because those Riptides will catch you using their jump moves in the assault phase, and obviously they can change their Nova reactors to move even further. Here's the Overwatch fire. And of course we're now using supporting fire with broadsides at this point. And there goes Farsight. But those Black Knights unfortunately failing a very, very short range charge, which leaves them hung out to dry essentially. It's essentially all but over at this point. Those Tau have more than enough guns to take out Samael and his friends. And here comes the last of the Tau firepower, which will spell the end of the game and essentially equate to a max win for Mike and his Tau Empire. And he deserves a well-played game, and he played the way Tau really should be played in this sort of environment. They've held the Dark Angels at arm's length and consistently held them there with sacrificial troops to try and keep them contained and controlled, and he was able to deal with them piecemeal, and it's a really well-played and executed strategy in this environment. So I hope you enjoyed watching this and enjoyed my commentary. If you'd like to see more, hopefully you can check out our channel. You can check out our website, objectivesecure.com.au. I write a blog there. There's a whole bunch of bits and pieces that get added fairly regularly. You can find us on Facebook and on Twitter as well. And look, I really hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you for the next one. Cheers, guys.